Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. Before I go into the substantive matter for the day, Mr. Deputy President, I want to join you and my colleagues before me in showing appreciation for the teachers of our nation who, under sometimes very trying circumstances, continue to execute to what is expected of them to feed the minds of our young people. And indeed, all of us seated here can well appreciate this, as we are all products of that system and that society, Mr. Deputy President. I want also to acknowledge all of the women who have either fought the fight and won over breast cancer, and the many others who continue to fight the fight, Mr. Deputy President. Over the past recent few years, I've had the unfortunate situation of having to deal with some very close relatives of mine, who some of which have succumbed and others who have fought and won over breast cancer. And so this is an opportunity for me, Mr. Deputy President, to urge our women to get their breast exams done. Early detection is key. There is hope, Mr. Deputy President, but we as women have to take the first step to ensure that we do our regular checks, so that if anything is amiss, that we can get the necessary treatment as early as possible, Mr. Deputy President. I also want to extend congratulations to my colleague Senator Lisa Joahi on her achievement. Mr. Deputy President, it speaks of the ability of the youth to chart their own course, Mr. Deputy President. And I am very elated as a young person myself to see other young persons, and especially other young women, Mr. Deputy President, put themselves out there for service, and that the work that they do is recognized amongst not just the local community, but the international community as well, Mr. Deputy President, and they can be recognized for that level of service. So I want to congratulate my colleague Senator, and I want to also place on the record that an achievement for one young person in this country is an achievement for all of us, Mr. Deputy President. Just a few days ago, I heard an individual that we can consider perhaps a veteran politician, a long-standing politician, took a very cheap jab at this very young lady, Mr. President, and made comments to the effect that they had sent a child to do an adult's work, Mr. Deputy President. But this very young person is making strides on the international front. That is noteworthy. Mr. Deputy President, I now move to the motion before us. A motion to borrow a sum of $9.97 million US from the Special Development Fund, loan facility resource of the Caribbean Development Bank for development projects. And this one is specifically geared towards building resilience in the St. Lucia Fire Service, Mr. Deputy President, at a rate of 0.75%, Mr. Deputy President, at a time when it is considered difficult to borrow, at a time when financial resources the world over is considered to be scarce. The government of St. Lucia, under the leadership of the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, has proven once again, Mr. Deputy President, that the confidence that has been restored in this country is going places, Mr. Deputy President. It was not too long ago, Mr. Deputy President, that I sat right here, and a member on the other side, whilst we were discussing another motion, where it stated that the interest rate was up to 7%, stood on the other side and said, "You all are borrowing at 7% because you all cannot do better, Mr. Deputy President." But at the last sitting we were here at concessionary rates, and we're here today, Mr. Deputy President, two motions, both of them at a rate of 0.75%. If this is not proof of a prudent government, a government who has been able to put this country back on a sound footing, who now has the international community, the lending agencies have realized that they can trust the processes in this country, Mr. Deputy President. And so we are seeing this concessionary rate, Mr. Deputy President.
That's right.
Mr. Deputy President, I look at, as announced by the Minister of Finance, what these monies will be used for. And in my mind, it is very comprehensive in terms of what it is going to be used for. Mr. Deputy President, we cannot, and the speakers before me I think have highlighted that, we cannot highlight enough how important the men and women and the institution of the St. Lucia Fire Service is to this country. We are a small country. We are a country marred by financial constraints and so many other issues, Mr. Deputy President. And the St. Lucia Fire Service, the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service, has continued to prove time and again their contribution in this country, Mr. Deputy President. And if at no other time in our history, during the COVID-19 period, Mr. Deputy President, when many of us were away from work, away from school, comfortable in our abode, but the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service had no choice. By virtue of their vocation, were out there ensuring that persons who, when the calls were made, they were going into these houses, going into these medical facilities, and transporting persons who in some cases had actually been diagnosed with COVID-19, Mr. Deputy President. All of us were scared of it. We isolated our family members, we isolated our friends because of what this virus did and how it spread, Mr. Deputy President. But the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service, their best foot were put forward, and they made a lot of things run more smoother within the health sector, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, Wekadi, c'est nom là et c'est madame là a dit dans service pour pied set l'ici. Nous ni pour catchile et nous ni pour recogniser qualité travail là yo ka fait en dit dans pays a. Mr. Deputy President, ça n'a dit c'est si pas pièce l'autre coup en dit dans l'histoire pays a. Les nous te ka souffert avec virus COVID-19 nous ouais pompier cette ici mettez pied yo dehors et que tout l'autre monde te ka courir because yo te pay COVID-19. C'est nom là et c'est madame là en service pompier cette ici yo te en la ouya yo te en l'hôpital là yo te ni soutien en l'air yo et de les nous te combina depuis nous ouais yo te échappé et nous te ouais yo te ni soute blanc yo en l'air yo avec masque l'air yo nous pay because nous ça c'est un monde COVID-19 yo ka amassé but yo pas jamais back down from challenge là because yo point pour mettre ça là c'est qualité service ça là yo te kay bay pays ya et même si bagay était difficile, même si conditions pas te bien, même si yo te ka complain yo pas teni tout ces équipements yo brisé pour faire travail là, but yo fait ça yo te pay et ça yo teni pour assurer yo te contribuer pour ça qui te ka fait. Là nous parler about COVID-19 et moi vle mettre en les record Mr. Deputy President, manière moi apprécier ça yo fait spécialement about ces qualité conditions yo te ka travail. Mr. Deputy President, the St. Lucia Fire Service covers a wide cross-section of the country, 9 fire stations littered all over the country, and so this is not isolated to any one part of the country. Their mission is to provide effective and efficient coverage throughout the island for the protection and preservation of life and property from fires, accidents, floods, dangerous chemicals, and other disasters. If you look at the statistics and the information coming out of the St. Lucia Fire Service, emergency medical services make up about 75% of the business of the service. And we can understand, as I explained before, how much more exacerbated that was during the COVID-19 period. And that put them under a lot of tremendous pressure during that period, like I said, in terms of the strain on resources, because the frequency of ambulance calls were more, and so on. However, some of the things that are noteworthy, Mr. Deputy President, that some of the issues, when you go around and you speak to the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service, especially during the period of COVID, a lot of the complaints are that they wish they could have done more during COVID-19. They wish they could have been more efficient when a call comes in, on a regular basis as well. When a call comes in that somebody needs to be transported to the hospital or so on, there are times when, just like the police, you hear the complaints that we do not have any ambulance available now. The ambulance from Vieux-Fort has gone down to Choiseul or to another area, and a resident in Vieux-Fort, for example, cannot immediately get service from the fire service to be transported to the hospital because the ambulance has been deployed in another location. Mr. Deputy President, just recently we heard of the unfortunate situation with the ambulance in the Dennery community, where they were transporting an elderly gentleman from the Dennery community to the Dennery hospital, and unfortunately this ambulance ended up in an accident. And I want to place on the record my condolence to the family of the elderly gentleman who was en route to the hospital, who succumbed during the incident, Mr. Deputy President. But that is the reality of what exists in terms of the resources of the fire service. And having had just this one ambulance in Dennery, imagine the calamities that could have happened if right at this moment there was another call for help, Mr. Deputy President. What would have happened? And so it is abundantly clear that there is need to improve the infrastructure of the fire service, to improve the fleet of equipment and ambulances and so on that are available at the fire service to benefit all the people, Mr. Deputy President. And so I applaud this gesture, I support this gesture, because it is really about equipping, it is really about strengthening the fire service so that they can provide a more efficient service as their mandate requires of them. Mr. Deputy President, the Prime Minister, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, declared this financial year one with a focus on health and security. And fortunately, the St. Lucia Fire Service falls under both of these categories. And so it is no surprise to me that within this financial year, we are seeing such a motion coming before the House, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, like I said before, there is a need to improve the equipment, there is a need to improve the services that are provided from the level of the fire service. Mr. Deputy President, there are certain things that if we put them into focus, we realize the strategy. We realize that one step leads to another step. So many are out there, and it was hinted here today, in terms of the health and safety levy, for example, health and security levy, for example. Mr. Deputy President, I will always say, I've said it for years, it doesn't matter who is the majority government, I've said it for years, but I believe that those of us who can has to make the necessary sacrifice for country. In February of every year and in December, when we celebrate Independence and National Day respectively, we speak of our patriotism, Mr. Deputy President. But I dare say a lot of what we say around these periods are simply lip service that we give to the idea of patriotism. But when the call is made, Mr. Deputy President, for us to put our money and put our actions where our words are concerned, we now start to scream and shout. Not me. I am not going to contribute to the well-being of my fellow man. I can afford this and I can afford that. And so this is very noteworthy, Mr. Deputy President, how we've cannibalized certain actions of the government that is geared towards assisting a country as a whole. And so it is no surprise then that at this juncture we can now come before the House with a motion to borrow to go towards an institution that is integral in providing or the support service for healthcare and security in this country, Mr. Deputy President. And Mr. Deputy President, you hear the cries of the men and women of the fire service when they have to respond to incidences of whether it's gun violence or so on. They do fear for their lives when they have to do that. And so it is under this background that I'm saying that the fundamental areas that are going to be dealt with under this borrowing, Mr. Deputy President, It is all-encompassing, in my opinion. I am not going to tout that it's perfect. I'm not going to say that there are perhaps not other areas of intervention that are required. And I'm not going to stand up here and say it is enough. And we hear this all the time around the table. This is not sufficient. This is not enough. We can do better. We can do more. We know that, Mr. Deputy President, but a step in the right direction is always a good step, Mr. Deputy President. I sat across on this side of the table this morning and I heard the leader of opposition business speak about a salary increase for the firefighters. And Mr. President, if perhaps there comes a time when we need to vote for an increase in salary for the firefighters, just like the teachers, just like the police, just like many other service sectors within this country and workers within this country, of course I will support that, Mr. Deputy President. I will support it. But we need not forget, Mr. Deputy President, that it was this government, under the leadership of the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, that approved and paid out to public servants a back pay in the value of $11.5 million, Mr. Deputy President. $11.5 million. Let's not forget. Let's not mislead the people of this country into believing that this government does not care for our public servants, Mr. Deputy President. Say, gouvernement sa ki asiye ki public servants join back pay yo te promet gouvernement kan pase yo promet li but yo pa pay, Mr. Deputy President. Aba gouvernement sa c'est la IPE. Nou pa ni pou oublier, Mr. Deputy President, c'est aba gouvernement sa la en avril 2022 service public join an increase of 1%, Mr. Deputy President. Let's not forget it. So let us not stand up and support the notions of people on the other side who want to now try to create some type of discord, try to begin some type of dissension in the public service to make it appear as if this government does not care with the public servants, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, I can go on. It is this government just yesterday who gave teachers, both permanent and temporary teachers, an increase of $600 for material allowance, Mr. Deputy President. You know what that says, Mr. Deputy President? It says that this is a government who care about the welfare and the well-being of the people in this country, including the public servants. Mr. Deputy President, gouvernement mêlé about Jean Paysa, Mr. Deputy President. Ça qui est de service public là, ça qui est de service privé, yo mêlé about Jean Paysa, Mr. Deputy President. Et moi moun qui affecté à COVID-19, gouvernement ka oule un lot, bayo un lot si pour $1,600, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's a government who cares for the people, Mr. President. And one who comes to the House this week, Mr. Deputy President, to show again, to not just speak about it, but to prove that they care about the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service, Mr. Deputy President. And we know it will not solve all the problems, Mr. Leader of opposition business. We know that it will not solve all the problems, but the question is, what did you do? But we are not talking the talk. We are walking the walk. Yes. We are walking the walk. Mr. Deputy President, like I said before, the St. Lucia Fire Service has proven itself as a stellar organization within the confines of St. Lucia. And I want to piggyback a bit. I don't know if the independent senator saw my notes this morning, but I wanted to as well mention how the fire service has evolved in terms of looking at now the areas of corporate social responsibility. And the independent senator mentioned the summer camp that the organization that he's affiliated with, the tourism sector, had the privilege, if I must say, to put in the funding for a summer program that the men and women of the fire service, and he mentioned the names today, sat down and conceptualized, recognizing that as they give service to the country, they need also to be part and parcel of the community. They need to be integrated more deeply in the community. And so they run that summer program, and from all accounts, Mr. Deputy President, it was a program well received. I remember in discussion with members of the fire service, when the program was first conceptualized, it was looking at a much smaller number than 50. But when they received names and numbers from the schools in terms of persons who were interested in being part of that program, they increased it to 50. And of course, it means Mr. Senator Aziz had to find more money in order to ensure that the entire program was funded. And so I want to place on the record, Mr. Deputy President, my thanks on behalf of the people of St. Lucia, the 50 young men and women who took part in that summer program. I want to place on record my thanks to the tourism sector for seeing the need to fund such a program. And it is of course with these collaborations with corporate St. Lucia that we can achieve the mandate of what we want to do in terms of decreasing crime, decreasing indigence, and ensuring that we build holistic men and women who can take this country to the next level in the next few years, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, as I boil down, as I come to an end, I want to indicate, Mr. Deputy President, that there are times we perhaps take actions that we do not realize the implication of our actions until things start to materialize. So whilst the member opposite says that this will not solve all the problems and the government can do this more and that more, Mr. Deputy President, I dare say that there was a time when perhaps, and I'm hoping that I say that very often in this honorable house, Mr. Deputy President, that I hope that this is really an era of reflection, confession, and absolution for the members opposite, Mr. Deputy President. Because I can only imagine what the $5 million we're waiting for the vaccines that never saw the shores or the sun or the sand in St. Lucia, what it could have done for the St. Lucia Fire Service, Mr. Deputy President.
Bring it back.
I wonder, Mr. Deputy President, how many aerodrome trucks and how many hazmat suits and how many new hoses could have been purchased, Mr. Deputy President, with the $7 million that was unceremoniously given away, Mr. Deputy President. Thankfully, we've gotten 2 back, but the balance of the 5 could have been used for the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service, Mr. Deputy President, to improve their fleet of equipment and to improve the service that they provide to this country, Mr. Deputy President. And I long for the day when these monies can come back to sweet St. Lucia, where it can get some good sun and enjoy some good sand, Mr. President, just like the tourists can get.
Short.
And so, Mr. Deputy President, I want to say that whilst the propaganda and the mistruths are being spread on the other side, this government continues to work. We will not be deterred, Mr. Deputy President, by the propaganda and by the mistruths. St. Lucians see, St. Lucians hear, St. Lucians understand. And when you put monies, when you put monies and you put resources into an essential service like the St. Lucia Fire Service, there is no hiding what the money will be used for, because Mr. Deputy President, lani moun ki kaya bwezan laisse equipment sa avinisia, le yo amasse phone yo ek yo kouye service pompier, ek yo di yo ni a moun ki malade, ben yo ni a kaya ledi fe, ek yo we tan te kay point che pompier pour ve kote yo kouye yo pour ve a, ek yo ve plus vite ki possible. Yo ni equipment bagay a di d'ambulance la ki yo sa chen yo jis la yo ouve an di dan l'hôpital. It will be tangible, Mr. Deputy President. The people will feel. They will not just hear and see, they will feel. And they will be able to say, this is where my money was spent. My loved one was able to get to the hospital and was saved because the fire service now has a little more that they can work with, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, the monies will be used for physical infrastructure, capacity building, and noteworthy, the training school in Viewfort. I happen to be from the South, Mr. Deputy President, so I know the area and that space where the training school is. And when you drive past the training school, you may not even realize that this is a space that is being used for such important things like instruction to our fire service men and women, Mr. Deputy President. And it has been used as well, not just for local use, but other regional entities, especially other regional fire service have also used it for training. And so I think it's a step in the right direction that whilst we furnish the fire service with equipment and other physical resources, that we also continue to build capacity, that we build our human capacity and the human resource within the fire service, Mr. Deputy President. Maintenance is a very important factor, and then one of the senators before me did make mention of that. But while sometimes we get equipment, whether it is purchased directly from the government of St. Lucia or you receive it from donor agencies, Mr. Deputy President, a lot of the times you pass around and you see the vehicles, the equipment just packed in a corner, sometimes very, very simple technical issues, but we do not have the prerequisite skills and the know-how to troubleshoot and to fix them. And so I know the fire service does have a maintenance unit, and I think they will be very happy to know that they will also benefit under this intervention, Mr. Deputy President. And of course the psychosocial support. And again, like I indicated, the human capital is also being looked at under this program, and within that is the psychosocial support, Mr. Deputy President. And if I can just piggyback a bit, I mentioned earlier about the incident in Dennery, and when things like that happen, for example, and these may be the minor ones, but when things like that happen, knowing as an individual who probably really love what you do, taking a patient to the hospital, and then you end up in that type of calamity where the patient is in harm, you yourself is in harm. I know the firemen who are involved in that, they're still recuperating from some of the injuries, Mr. Deputy President, but we cannot tame down the mental impact that these things can have on the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service, Mr. Deputy President. And so I think putting this in there as well is a good start. And of course, inclusivity, there is a section that deals solely with the gender sensitivity and putting in that gender action plan, and I think that is also commendable, Mr. Deputy President. This government has always indicated that they are an equal opportunity government in terms of the gender, and so we can see some of it coming out in there, Mr. Deputy President. And as I close, I want to again reiterate my support for the motion before us, Mr. Deputy President, and to continue to encourage the men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service to continue giving of the stellar service that they have been giving to the people of St. Lucia. We appreciate them and we appreciate what they do. I thank you, Mr. Deputy President.